Hi, welcome to This Week in Ames. I'm Susan Guiazda. On today's show, we'll meet our new Fleet Services Director. My guest today is Fleet Services Director Corey Mellis. Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Well, you were here just a couple of weeks ago, but under a different title. Congratulations for becoming the new Fleet Services Director for the City of Ames.
Thank you.
So as Fleet Services Director, tell us a little bit about what that means that your duties include.
As Fleet Services Director, I oversee the Fleet Services Division, and that encompasses all the equipment in the city, responsible for making sure it's maintained correctly, purchasing new equipment, and working with the departments to get them the equipment they need.
One of the other responsibilities under your area is also facilities, which encompasses things like City Hall and energy efficiency. I know that there's always work to be done with buildings that are sort of starting to show a little age.
Yes, right now at City Hall we're going under another phase where we're remodeling the basement to get some more space. So that's one of the bigger projects we have going on, but it's kind of a constant work on City Hall on a lot of minor issues.
Do you consult with any of the other facilities, or is it pretty much just City Hall?
City Hall and maintenance facility are prime responsibilities of this position, but we'll in the future maybe make sure we coordinate with other facilities.
Now, as we know, the City Hall facility was once a high school built in the 1930s, has gone through several renovations. We moved into City Hall in 1990, which means 2015 will be our 25th anniversary there.
Yes, so it's still a great facility, and so these few changes have just allowed more staff to come into City Hall.
People can see on the north side of the building there's a lot of fencing and work being done. On the inside of the building, probably not as noticeable to most people.
No, since it's in the basement and there's only been minor work, they're trying to finish the outside work and then they'll move inside, and the basement is hopefully be completed by March.
So one of the things that you were working on before moving into this position in the Public Works Department was a plan with the Parks and Recreation Department to sort of attack the emerald ash borer, which is something that's going to be probably attacking our ash trees here soon enough. Talk a little bit about the emerald ash borer and what it is.
So the emerald ash borer is an invasive pest that attacks ash trees, whether they're healthy or not, and will kill ash trees. It's kind of started in Michigan, and it's kind of moved this way. And so we took a plan to council to be proactive. There are some treatment options, but it depends on kind of the size and condition of the trees that are available for that. So we kind of, council agreed, we did a 20-year plan, which will involve treatment and removal, and we look to start that most likely this winter.
So one of the things that we're looking at as a city is the public trees. Of course, people who have trees on their own property will really have to go through a sort of a similar process of assessing and determining sort of a course of action.
Yes, so the trees we look at were only park trees or in the right-of-way, which are a city responsibility, but private homeowners might want to identify if they do have ash trees and talk to qualified professionals to see what their options might be.
And the right-of-way, I always like to remind people, is typically that area between the sidewalk and the curb, or curb and 15-foot back.
Yeah, that's usually about right. So if they have questions, though, they can certainly call us, and we can look at our mapping to see if the tree is actually private or public. If there is no sidewalk, usually if there is a sidewalk, it's a pretty clear delineator.
How many ash trees do we actually, public, city-owned ash trees do we have in the city of Ames?
So in kind of the right-of-way area and maintained areas of parks, not the forested areas, our initial inventory is around 2,500 ash trees. And so this year, ones that are not available for treatment, we'll kind of begin removing those trees.
So one of the things I think when you looked at sort of a comprehensive plan to remove trees, you also looked at a way to replant as well.
Yes, what we stressed is when we replant, we really want to get the diversity up. There are some areas in town that have very large populations of ash or maples or oaks, and we want to kind of get away from that. So if there is anything in the future that we don't run into a same scenario where we might have to remove almost all the trees on a block.
So when you do remove a tree, then there is a replanting schedule in place?
This year, it might be a longer delay due to the funding, but then in the future, we'll try to replant as quick as possible. because replanting you can really only do in spring and fall. So it'll be coordinating, and we'll work with homeowners to let them know when they can expect a new tree.
And will you replant for every tree pulled, just a couple trees back, or how will you do that?
We kind of planned one for one. So if we take a tree out, we'll plant it back. We might have to work in some areas if maybe the tree wasn't in a very good location or it's not a good spot, but we'll work with homeowners and see what options there are or if there's a better location.
So trees obviously have been very important to the Ames community for years. We've been a tree city for probably 3 decades. How does the percentage of ash trees sort of compare to our overall urban forest?
It's the second largest percentage behind maples. So it's a very big part of our urban canopy, and so that's why it's very important and why we're making sure in the future we have enough diversity, so if there is something that comes after a specific species, obviously this happened in the past with Dutch elm, that we kind of are able to handle that without the large impacts of having so much of one species.
So I know that the city is not concerned so much about the university property, but the Iowa State also has pursued an ash plan to handle their trees as well.
Yes, they have their own plan, and they've had that in place for several years, and so we've coordinated with them and talked to them about their plan, and they're aware of our plan.
For people who think maybe there'll be some way to that maybe their tree will survive, or maybe they don't want to take a tree down, what are their options?
There are options like we talked about with treatment, but it'll depend on the condition of the tree, and the treatment only lasts for 2 to 3 years, so you'd have to retreat throughout that time. So if it's an ash tree, that would be pretty much the only option, is to look at some type of treatment to prevent it from getting infested.
And is there any evidence that some ash trees maybe are resistant to the emerald ash borer?
Not yet, but that's why in forested areas, I think that's why you won't see, hopefully in the future they'll find ash trees that seem to be resistant in the forested areas, and they can study those and maybe find why it attacks certain ash.
So in general, the plan really does look at taking down ash trees with the idea that they probably won't make it, and then being proactive in the replanting so we can get those trees up and growing as quickly as possible.
Yes, and then we are treating some of the city trees too, to kind of hopefully keep the benefits for people, and then also give us time to go through the removal process over a longer period and allow newer trees to grow up.
So I know that, like I said before, you're not in this alone working with Parks and Recreation, but also we have the ability to tap into a part-time urban forester.
Yes, we have Shane Donegan, who was part of a grant. We're one of 3 pilot cities that he works with, and so he's assisted us on the plan and on replanting projects and kind of anything to do with our urban forestry program.
Well, it sounds like quite a comprehensive plan. 20 years is obviously a long time. And you said that as soon as this winter, people might actually see activity taking place with the trees?
The plan is that we'll work on notifications to let people know, including probably posting the trees that we plan on removing this year, and letting people in the neighborhood and other people know kind of what our plan is. So that probably will start this winter depending on kind of weather conditions, but people will probably see work in areas predominantly focused maybe on the smaller ash trees in newer areas starting this winter, but then spreading throughout the community in the spring.
So I've been very impressed in my conversations with people about the emerald ash borer. There seems to be a certain amount of understanding that this is it's a situation that it looks rather bleak for these trees, and that people are accepting of the fact that the trees probably need to come down to get something else growing as quickly as possible. Are you experiencing that as well?
Yes, I think quite a few people. It's been in the news quite a bit over the past year. It kind of stalled, it seemed like, on its movement, but this year it's moved quite a bit into Iowa. So I think the news and what other communities are doing has really been out in front of people. So I think most people are aware, but if they have questions, they can certainly call us.
And while it hasn't actually, the emerald ash borer hasn't actually been confirmed in Ames, it has been identified nearby.
Yes, it was identified in Boone and Story City, so very close, and that's why we're making sure that we start as soon as possible.
So if you have questions about the emerald ash borer, I know there are lots of resources out there. Where can people look for information?
Probably 2 main sources. Obviously the City of Ames website. There's a new website, cityofames.org/trees. that has information about all trees, but links to emerald ash borer. Obviously, ISU Extension is also a good resource for people to look for information. Or if they just have general questions, they can certainly call the Public Works Department. And then we also have an ash map that shows all the ash in the city that were inventoried, so they can find that through
The public trees.
Yes, public trees and park trees. So if they wonder if the ash in front of their house, they can look at that website too and look at the map.
Again, that website is cityofames.org/trees. You can get links to the ash tree map on that website, as well as information on licensed tree surgeons and links to other websites that give information about ash trees and treatment options. Corey, thanks for visiting with us today.
Thank you, Susan.
Again, that website is cityofames.org/trees if you want information about the emerald ash borer. Some other things for your calendar. Remember, November is the month of holidays. We have Thanksgiving coming up, and City Hall and most city offices will be closed on Thursday and Friday, November 27th and 28th. Also, if you haven't gotten all your yard work done, you have one more opportunity for Yard Waste Free Day. That is Saturday, December 6th. Well, that's our show for today. Thanks for watching, and tune in next week for This Week in Ames.